Investment appraisal. This is a really good section of the course. So you're looking at evaluating which investment would be best for the business. So that implies that you've got to be able to compare two different investment projects, at least two different ones. So the methods that you need to know about are payback period, average rate of return, and net present value, or sometimes called discounted cash flow. And so payback period is going to show how long it'll take the business to pay back the initial investment, and the business wants it to show the shortest amount of time possible. Average rate of return is the average percentage return, so I suppose profit that you're making each year on your initial investment as a percentage of the initial investment, and the business wants it to show the largest percentage possible. And net present value is the value of an investment taking into account the initial cost and the time value of money. So we'll look at that, what time value of money actually means, a little bit later. And the business wants it to show the largest value or percentage. So payback period. The best way to understand this is by working through some examples. So Thames Radio is contemplating investing in new broadcasting equipment. The cost of the investment is forecast to be $150,000. The expected additional revenue from being able to broadcast to a larger area is $40,000 per annum. What is the payback period of this investment? So what you need to do with payback period is really kind of maybe just put some numbers down the side to represent the year, and then look at costs, putting in the costs and the income. This is quite a nice question because it's £40,000 per year, so we've got quite an even distribution of income. So what you want to work out is the net balance. So your costs, it should be income minus your costs, and here we get this net balance. So we've got minus 150, and then we've got, if we add 40,000 to that, we've got minus 110 at the end of year 1, and at the end of year 2 it's minus 70, and at the end of year 3 it's minus 30, and at the end of year 4 we're into making money, I suppose, so it's £10,000. So we know that the business is going to pay back between year 3 and year 4. So firstly, what we need to write down on paper is 3, because it's going to take, we know, at least 3 years. And when you're into your 4th year, the money will have been paid back. But how do we work out, exactly how far into that 3rd year they're going to pay back? They're going to have paid back the initial investment. Well, we do this little equation, value left to pay and income of that year. So we know that there's 30,000 left to pay at the end of year 3, and we know that year we're going to get in 40,000. So 30,000 divided by 40,000 equals 0.75. So then you add that to the number of years that you got before. So it's completely alright to put down 3.75 years. But I always like to put things in years and months, because we don't work in 0.75 of a year. So you take your number, 0.75, times it by 12, because there's 12 months in a year. So we get 9 months. So 3 years and 9 months for that one. And remember, we got the 3 because we saw that was the last year that we had a negative balance there. Okay, so let's look at the next method, average rate of return. So Wessex Leisure is considering the purchase of a pleasure cruiser for use on the Solent. The Meridian is available at a cost of $900,000 and would cost $100,000 each year to operate. Over its 10-year life, the cruiser would generate £280,000 in revenue each year. Calculate the average rate of return on this investment. So this one's a little bit more complicated, and we've got a few little steps. So what I've done is I've put the steps in blue and then the calculations in red on this next slide. So we've got the total revenue over the life of the investment. So we know that it's going to bring in $280,000 a year. We know it's 10 years, so we've got $2,800,000. Then we work out the total costs over the life of the investment. So this is the initial investment, $900,000 plus $100,000 times 10, because we know we've got 10 years, and that's the cost of running it each year. So if we add those together, we get 1,900,000. So then we take the total revenue minus the total costs, and we end up with, this is the return that you're going to get over the life of the project, 900,000. But remember that this investment appraisal method is called average rate of return, not just return. So we've got to find out the average rate of return. So this is over the life of the project. Okay, so we need to divide it by the number of years in the project, or number of years that you're actually going to have your investment, your fixed asset. So it's 10, so we get 90, that's the average return. So that's 90,000. But remember, it's not called average return, it's called average rate of return, which suggests a percentage. So we're going to divide it by the cost of the initial investment. And you get 0.1, or times it by 100, you get into your percentage, so 10%. And what that is showing is the percentage return you're getting each year, the return that you're getting as a percentage of the initial investment. Okay, last one then, net present value. So Chedgrave Printers Ltd is appraising the cost of and the benefits from a new piece of machinery. The equipment costs 300,000 and has a working life of 4 years. The company expects to generate revenue of 120,000 each year if it purchases the machine. Calculate the net present value of this project, assuming an interest rate of 10%. Okay, so what net present value is, taking into account, is the time value of money, basically. So there's a phrase that my students always laugh at when I say in class, but they think it sounds like a rude phrase, but it's not. So one in the hand is worth two in the bush, is the saying, and it means basically that a sure thing is worth more than maybe something that could be more profitable in the future, but that isn't as certain. Okay, so I suppose that's debatable if that's your philosophy to life, but this time value of money definitely goes along those lines. So what it's saying is that if you were, going to receive £10 in the future, it doesn't have the same value as £10 now, because what you could actually do with £10 now is go and put it in an account, or you could invest it in money. So what we have to do is give a lower value to money when it's in the future, even though it's technically the same monetary, it's meant to be the same monetary value that it is now. So usually if money has a value, if the interest rate is 10%, or whatever the interest rate is, we use that discount factor. Now the interest rate is 0.5% at the moment, so it's a bit far off this discount value. And the reason we use the current interest rate usually is because that's one of the alternatives. You could have put that money in a bank and got 10% return. If you can find any bank account that's giving 10% return, that's pretty good, because the interest rate's very low at the moment. But when I did my A-levels, the interest rate was 5%, so maybe a little bit more realistic. But anyway, they will give you the discount factor. So again, we need to put, they're not going to give you these figures in the table, but this is just how I'd set out your workings. And I don't think you necessarily need to write down this column here, but I've just put it in so you can understand what I'm doing. So we know 300,000 is going to go out as the initial investment, and then the income's going to be that for each one of the 4 years. But we've got the discount factor here that I've just taken off the discount table. So what you do is you times that number by that, and you get the discount calculation, and it should give you the net present value as well. And we've got income times that number, and what we get is the net present value. And then if we add all of those up, we should get that as the net present value. Now you can just leave it at that, but sometimes in the Welsh Board Mark schemes, they then divide it by the initial investment, so it shows, I suppose, the return on the investment, and so that's giving a 27% return over the life of the investment. Now, I can't say whether that's good or not. You need to be able to compare it to something else, and in the actual exam they'll give you two projects that you'd have to choose between. But remember, qualitative factors should be taken into account as well when you're doing some investment appraisal. So how is it going to affect the members, the employees, the members of staff that you have in your organisation? Because if you implement a project and it's got an average rate of return that looks really good, it looks better than the alternative, and you've got a really good payback period and you've got a really good net present value, well, that's all great. But if the investment is automation and it means that you're going to make half of your workforce redundant, it might be something that you want to consider. Is this something that we actually want to do? Would this look very good for us in kind of public relations, all those types of things? You might also want to consider ethical considerations. Just because something looks like a profitable project or an investment doesn't mean it's always going to be very ethical, and maybe your customers react or in a certain way, or other stakeholders such as the government. You might get a great return on something, or a projected return on something, but how confident are you? Because the further into the future that you're forecasting, so for example with this one, you were saying in 4 years' time we should be able to earn 120,000 a year. Well, 4 years is quite a long time, and would you be able to forecast where you're going to be in 4 years' time? Your lives are all going to change a lot, doing A levels. But for businesses as well, the economic cycle, boom, bust, all of those things can really make it difficult to forecast. The availability of funding, so you might find a project that's really, really profitable, but do you have the money to be able to invest into it? And government legislation might make a difference as well. So this, obviously legal factors could mean you might not be able to invest, but there might be some financial rewards from the government for investing in certain projects, so certain regeneration projects. So qualitative factors do have to be taken into account, and that's usually why on these questions they give you quite a substantial chunk of reading with the financial information about the investment projects, so that you can write an essay and advise the business on what the best action would be.